Get started with the topic of this video, I'd like to just go ahead and give a quick shout out to a fellow atheist YouTuber who operates under the name of Venaloid. Not only does he put out some really great content that I enjoy, but he also took it upon himself to polish up my channel's artwork and logo unsolicitedly. So go ahead and stop by his channel. I'll post the link here and see what he has to offer. Now, as to this video, basically, what I want to cover is the fact that recently I received a copy of the book The Reason for God by Timothy Keller, who is a Christian pastor from a well-meaning Christian family member of mine who was concerned about my recent foray into open and vocal atheism. As a quick aside, it is listed on the cover as a New York Times bestseller, which I've come to learn is fairly meaningless. Many authors, especially Christian authors, have learned to game the system by essentially having their churches pre-order a bunch of copies of the book so that their books hit the #1 spot on the bestseller list during the first week when it debuts. It achieves that status, and then they can make this claim on all subsequent copies and editions of the book, even if it falls completely off the map after week #1. And, they do this because they know that people are gullible and they'll be likely to pick up a book and read it, think it's credible or interesting because they see that it was a bestseller. So, after all, that many people can't be wrong, right? So, anyways, getting back to the topic, I had little interest in reading the book. As a well-versed atheist, I'm quite familiar with Christian apologetics and arguments. I flipped to the back cover and I saw some of the following questions posed. Why does God allow suffering in the world? How could a loving God send people to hell? Why isn't Christianity more inclusive? How can there be one true religion? And why have so many wars been fought in the name of God? And, there's not much new here. It's essentially the same old talking points, which are easily addressed and arguments easily refuted. Just for the hell of it, I skimmed over the first chapter and I couldn't believe my eyes. By the third page of the first chapter, the author had already invoked Godwin's law. The very first point that the author decided to make was to claim that since many skeptics acknowledge that religion is a barrier to peace and civility, that one tactic that may be utilized is to ban religion. Of course, he then brought up the all too familiar associations between atheism and Soviet Russia, Communist China, Nazi Germany, although he at least acknowledged that the Nazis went about addressing religion in a different way. Setting aside the argument over the role of religion in Nazi Germany or what Hitler's religious beliefs were, is they're mostly irrelevant, given that they weren't the driving force behind their actions. This false equivocation between atheism and political ideology or movements is really dishonest and stale. Atheism is the rejection of the claim that gods exist. Period. Atheists vary wildly in their political stances and essentially can be found across the entire political spectrum. Atheism is no more associated with communism than Christianity is associated with democracy, regardless of what Cold War propaganda and fundamentalist revisionist history will tell you. Now, this is not to deny that the regimes mentioned were atheistic and or anti-religion, but it is to say that this is not always the end result of atheism. What atheists in the United States want is a secular government, and history backs them up on this. Our country was founded as a secular nation. What this means is that while all citizens have the individual right to practice whatever faith they wish, the government itself is apathetic to the subject. It doesn't take a stance or favor one belief system over another, including favoring atheism over theism and vice versa. Now, while we attempt to present logical, historically based, scientifically supported, philosophically sound arguments against religion, we don't want to ban religion or persecute those who wish to practice it. We simply don't want anyone's beliefs being forced onto anyone else, including atheism. A non-stance by the government is not atheism. Secular is not atheism. Communism is not atheism. The bottom line is that people who want to connect atheism with totalitarian and oppressive regimes are being intentionally dishonest in order to drum up fear and paranoia amongst the faithful, in order to strengthen their resolve and belief that God is the only way to a peaceful civil society. Highly a-religious nations like Japan, Sweden, and Denmark beg to differ.